Ethan Mara's boots echoed through the narrow metal corridors of the research station, each step bouncing off walls that hummed with alien energy. He had been assigned to routine maintenance, sweeping and cleaning labs, but the silence of the early shift made the hairs on his neck stand on end. Then a sound cut through the stillness, high-pitched, piercing, almost musical, yet sharp enough to make his ears ring. A cry unlike anything he had ever heard. He froze, heart pounding. The sound wasn't coming from the machinery. It was alive. Urgent. Desperate. Something small. Something scared. Without thinking, Ethan sprinted toward the source. The nursery lab was marked restricted access, but his gut told him the alarms weren't for this moment. Through the reinforced glass walls he saw it. A tiny creature no larger than a cat, yet its features glimmered with colors he didn't recognize. Its skin shimmered like wet pearl, and delicate translucent wings fluttered erratically as it rocked itself back and forth in a transparent incubator. Its large, liquid eyes reflected terror, and its mouth opened again in a wail that seemed almost capable of shattering glass. Ethan's mind raced. The manual said not to touch the hatchlings, not to interfere with their environment. But he couldn't stand there and listen. He climbed the small access ladder and reached for the control panel. The warning lights flashed red. His fingers shook, but he ignored the alarm. "I've got to calm her, somehow," he muttered. He opened the incubator hatch slowly. The hatchling froze for a moment, staring at him with wide, unblinking eyes. Its cry stopped abruptly as if it were measuring him. Then it lunged forward with a sharp squeak, trying to bite at his glove. Ethan froze for a split second, then leaned closer, speaking softly. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." Nothing worked. Water, air adjustments, even the nutrient formula designed for her species. Everything only made her scream louder. Ethan's heart thumped. The alarms were now echoing in his ears. He realized that her cries weren't just frightening, they were dangerous. The station sensors were picking up unusual energy spikes from the hatchling's nervous system, causing lights to flicker and minor systems to stutter. If he didn't calm her, the situation could spiral out of control fast. His eyes darted to the food pack in his belt, Earth rations meant for his long shifts. On a wild impulse, he grabbed a small cube of dehydrated fruit and held it out. The hatchling froze again. Her head tilted slightly. Her wings twitched. She sniffed the air, making a soft gurgling sound. Ethan held his breath. Then something impossible happened. A tiny high-pitched trill escaped her mouth, a sound almost like laughter. She paused, stared at the fruit, and for the first time Ethan saw curiosity replace fear. She reached forward with trembling little hands and touched the cube. The cry stopped entirely. A shiver ran down Ethan's spine. Something in this simple, human food had triggered a reaction in her, something he didn't understand. Before he could process it, another sound reached him, a lower, growling note from the incubator beside hers. Ethan turned just in time to see a second hatchling struggling violently, wings flaring, teeth snapping at the glass. He realized that if he tried the same trick with this one, it might react unpredictably. Panic surged. One wrong move and he could lose control of both incubators. Thinking quickly, Ethan grabbed a second cube of fruit. "Here. Try this," he whispered, holding it near the second hatchling. Its violent thrashing slowed, but its eyes were suspicious, almost hostile. It snatched the fruit like a tiny predator and retreated to a corner. Ethan exhaled slowly. Small victory. The immediate chaos had stopped. The first hatchling's soft giggle floated in the air again, calming the room. But then came a sound that made his blood run cold. A soft, metallic hiss behind him, the door to the observation chamber sliding open. He hadn't expected anyone to be watching. A shadow moved there, tall and elegant, and for a brief moment Ethan thought he saw the silhouette of a figure with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. The hatchling stiffened, as if sensing something beyond his understanding. Ethan's pulse quickened. He glanced back at the laughing hatchling in his arms, then at the second one, now eyeing the shadow warily. Whatever this was, it was bigger than him. Something about the figure felt critical, judgmental, dangerous, or maybe just curious. He realized the station was full of secrets he had no idea about, and the tiny hatchlings might be only the beginning. The human who had only wanted to sweep the floors had now stepped into something far larger than himself. And somewhere in the shadows, eyes watched, waiting to see if he was worthy. Then the first hatchling did something Ethan didn't expect. She chirped, a sound like a trill combined with a laugh, and fluttered her wings directly toward the observation chamber, almost as if she wanted him to follow. Ethan swallowed hard. He had calmed her once. But now the station itself seemed to demand more. Something was about to happen and he had no idea what it would be. And in that instant, a low rumble shook the nursery floor, faint but growing. The lights flickered. The incubators beeped rapidly. Whatever came next, Ethan knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. Ethan barely had time to process the rumble before the nursery shook again, stronger this time. The incubators beeped frantically, warning lights flashing red. The first hatchling in his arms whimpered, wings trembling, its giggle replaced by sharp, panicked cries. Ethan's pulse raced. He had calmed her once with a simple piece of earth food, but now chaos was spreading faster than he could manage. He glanced around. The second hatchling, the one he had just soothed, had started thrashing violently, banging against the transparent walls of its incubator. Sparks flickered from nearby consoles as energy surged unpredictably. Ethan realized the tiny creatures weren't just fragile, they were dangerous. Their cries, their laughter, even their fear, were interfering with the station's systems. If he didn't act fast, the nursery could explode with cascading failures. He ducked behind a console, holding the first hatchling close, trying to shield her. The growl of the second hatchling made the metal walls vibrate. "Okay, think, Ethan," he muttered, heart hammering. "Food worked once. Maybe it can work again. But you can't just throw it in, she's scared and he's unpredictable." He tore a packet of dried fruit cubes open, holding one in front of the second hatchling. Its eyes flicked to the cube, then back to him, full of suspicion. It lunged. Ethan jumped back instinctively, but the hatchling's claws barely grazed his glove. He steadied his breathing, then knelt on one knee, keeping his voice low and calm. "I'm not here to hurt you. Look, try this." Slowly he moved the fruit toward its tiny hands. A tense moment passed. Then, as if deciding he was no threat, the hatchling snatched the cube. Its thrashing slowed, the growls diminishing into wary chirps. Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him in a wave. One problem contained. Small victory, but he knew better than to relax. Another rumble shook the floor. A deeper alarm sounded across the station, different from the nursery beeps. The hatchling stiffened, ears twitching. Ethan looked up at the observation chamber, still shadowed, still silent, but now he sensed movement behind the glass. The figure, taller than any human, had shifted closer, glowing faintly in the dim emergency lights. Its gaze felt heavy, assessing, almost sentient. The realization hit Ethan like a punch. Someone, or something, was watching every move, judging him. These creatures were not ordinary. The hatchling's reactions weren't random. They were reacting to him, yes, but also to the presence in the chamber. And if this figure disapproved, Ethan had no idea what might happen. He forced himself to focus. He couldn't just stand there. The first hatchling had calmed, but its giggles were soft, almost fragile. The second one might relapse if it sensed fear. He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. Ethan scanned the room, noticing the small environmental control panel on the far wall. He ran over, keeping one hand on the first hatchling. The controls were complicated, but the labels were in English, human design, thankfully. One button adjusted sound dampening in the room. Another managed airflow, temperature, and nutrient delivery. His mind raced. Maybe he could isolate the hatchling's cries from the station systems, reduce the feedback, and prevent further surges. Fingers flying, he adjusted settings, watching the energy spikes on the monitors drop slightly. The second hatchling chirped curiously, its claws gripping the console edge. A small, satisfied smile crossed Ethan's face. He had bought time, just enough to think of the next move. Then came a sudden shock. The first hatchling squirmed violently in his arms, wings flapping, knocking the cube of fruit to the floor. Ethan stumbled, nearly losing balance. A surge of energy from the second incubator hit the console. Sparks flew. Lights flickered dangerously. The hatchling cried louder than ever, a high-pitched wail that made his teeth ache. Ethan's instincts took over. He dropped to the floor, shielding both his body and the first hatchling, then grabbed another cube of fruit and held it above the tiny creature's head. He spoke softly, repeating the same calm words. Slowly, the hatchling's cries shifted into tentative chirps. Its wings settled. The energy spike diminished, flickers of light stabilizing across the monitors. Another small payoff. Relief rushed through him, but only for a heartbeat. Movement in the observation chamber caught his attention again. The figure had stepped forward, clearly visible now, tall, elegant, humanoid but unlike anything Ethan had seen. Its skin shimmered faintly like liquid silver, eyes glowing softly. It raised a hand slowly, pointing toward the hatchlings. Then, in a voice he felt more than heard, it spoke a single word. Not English. Not anything he could understand, But the sound made the hatchling stop moving, heads tilting, listening. Ethan froze. Whatever this being was, it commanded the young creatures with a single sound. He realized something chilling. His control over the hatchlings was temporary. One wrong move, one misstep, and he could lose all influence. The station itself seemed to hold its breath. He glanced at the first hatchling again. Its eyes found his, wide and trusting despite everything. The second hatchling peeked cautiously from the corner. He had a choice: retreat and lose control, or step further into this unknown, risking his life to protect them. Ethan squared his shoulders. He had saved one life already. He wasn't about to back down from the next. "All right," he muttered under his breath, "let's see what you really want." Just then, a faint, almost imperceptible hum began to vibrate through the floor, different from the alarms, deeper, resonating in his chest. The hatchling stiffened, wings quivering. Ethan's stomach sank. Whatever this station held, whatever the alien queen was observing, it was about to get far more dangerous. And in that moment, the first hatchling chirped again, not fear this time, but laughter. A strange, musical trill that echoed off the walls. It seemed to challenge the unknown presence in the chamber, and Ethan realized with a jolt, the tiny creature, fragile as it seemed, might be more powerful than anyone imagined. The hum grew louder. The lights flickered again. Ethan tightened his grip on the hatchling, heart pounding, and whispered, "Here we go, whatever happens next, we face it together." The room went silent for a heartbeat. Then a deep vibration ran through the metal floor. Something was coming. Ethan's grip tightened on the first hatchling as the vibration through the floor intensified, subtle at first, then unmistakable, like the heartbeat of the station itself. The second hatchling, perched nervously in its incubator corner, let out a warbling trill, its small wings flicking in anxious jerks. Something was awakening, something that neither the station's alarms nor his human instincts had predicted. He scanned the room, eyes darting to the shadowed observation chamber. The tall, silver-skinned figure remained still, glowing faintly in the dim red emergency lights, watching, waiting. Ethan realized with a sinking certainty, this was no ordinary oversight figure. This was a queen or some authority among the aliens, assessing every choice he made, every action he took with these hatchlings. Every movement had consequences far beyond the nursery walls. Then it happened. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer spread across the incubator panels, like waves of light moving under the surface. The first hatchling wriggled violently, its tiny claws pressing against Ethan's chest, yet its eyes glimmered with recognition, even excitement. He froze, trying to interpret the sudden change. The shimmer wasn't random, it was responding to the hatchling. And as he watched, a realization struck him. The hatchling's emotional state, the fear, the laughter, the curiosity, was interacting with the station itself. Ethan's pulse raced. Could it be that the laughter, the very sound of this tiny creature enjoying a moment, was generating energy? Uncontrolled energy if mismanaged. He risked a small experiment. Gently, he held the fruit cube closer to the hatchling, letting it nibble slowly. The trill of laughter returned, soft and musical. Instantly, the shimmer pulsed through the incubator like a heartbeat, stabilizing for a moment. Sparks from nearby consoles subsided. Small victory. But the pattern was clear. The hatchling's emotional state wasn't just affecting its own incubator, it had a ripple effect across the station systems. Ethan realized with alarm that if one hatchling could cause surges, two could overwhelm the controls completely. He glanced at the second incubator. The other hatchling had begun mimicking the first small chirps, tentative laughter forming in her own way. His stomach twisted. The observation chamber shifted suddenly. The queen raised a hand, the motion deliberate, commanding. And then a sound, low, resonant, vibrating through the room, alien yet precise, issued from her direction. Both hatchlings froze instantly. Their wings stiffened, eyes wide. Ethan felt the air itself hum around him. Whatever the queen had done with a single gesture, a single sound, it silenced the creature's emotions instantly, as though she had turned off the energy he was barely controlling. Ethan swallowed hard. He was outmatched and he knew it. But he couldn't abandon the hatchlings. Not now, not ever. He needed to understand. He looked at the first hatchling in his arms. Its eyes found his again, pleading. It trusted him, he had to trust himself. "Okay," he whispered. "Think like her, like them." He studied the way the hatchling reacted to his voice, the way her small claws reached for the fruit. Slowly, carefully, he began to combine his words with gestures, soft hums, tiny movements meant to mimic the queen's influence without replicating it exactly. The hatchling stirred slightly, curiosity winning over fear. A trill of laughter broke through again. The shimmer pulsed brighter, stronger than before, and Ethan felt the floor vibrate beneath him. The Queen's presence seemed to react, subtle shifts in her posture, her eyes narrowing slightly. It was clear, she had not expected him to find a way to stabilize the hatchling's energy while maintaining control without her command. He was improvising. He was learning. He was holding his own. Then a sudden shock nearly knocked him off his feet. A new set of lights blinked on across the room, emergency indicators he hadn't seen before. Another incubator, hidden in the far shadows, flickered to life. Ethan's stomach sank. He hadn't even known it existed. And inside, he glimpsed a tiny form moving just like the others. An unknown hatchling, awake, responding to the energy pulses he had just stabilized. The first hatchling chirped sharply, wings fluttering nervously. The second let out a tentative trill. Ethan realized the implications immediately. The station housed more than a dozen of these creatures, all capable of influencing energy systems. One misstep, one wrong emotional trigger, and he could bring the entire station into chaos. His mind raced, heart hammering. He glanced back at the Queen. Her expression was unreadable, eyes glowing faintly. Then came the first subtle acknowledgement, a slight tilt of her head. Not approval, not trust, but recognition. She had noticed what he had done. He had acted with intelligence, courage, and quick thinking under impossible odds. That small gesture from her was a signal that he wasn't invisible. But the vibration in the floor grew stronger again. The unknown hatchling in the shadows had started responding to the energy pulses of the first two. Sparks flared briefly from the nearest console, and a sharp metallic hiss echoed through the room. Ethan's grip tightened on the hatchling in his arms. He had stabilized the first two, yes, but now the stakes had just multiplied. A new realization hit him. These hatchlings weren't just fragile creatures. They were biological power sources, emotional conduits that could alter the very systems of the station. And if he could learn to control them, even partially, humans could do something incredible. Something no alien species might ever expect. Ethan's eyes narrowed, determination hardening. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was unlike anything he had imagined. The Queen was watching, the unknown hatchling was awake, and the station itself seemed alive, waiting to see what the human would do next. He swallowed, setting the first hatchling gently on a small padded platform. "All right," he muttered, voice low but firm. "Let's see how far we can go, and what secrets you're hiding." A sudden, low rumble ran through the floor. The Queen's eyes glimmered brighter, almost like anticipation. Ethan froze, heart racing. Whatever was coming next, it wasn't just a challenge. It was a test. And then, faint but unmistakable, a new sound joined the hum. A trill of laughter unlike anything he had heard, rising from the shadows. Ethan's blood ran cold. The real mystery was only just beginning. Ethan's heart pounded as the rumble beneath the nursery floor grew louder, almost like the station itself was breathing, alive with a force he didn't yet understand. The three hatchlings, two he had already calmed and one newly awakened, were chirping and flapping frantically, responding to the vibrations in each other. Sparks flickered along the walls, alarms shrieked intermittently, and every console beeped a warning he barely had time to process. He realized instantly, if he didn't act fast, the nursery could be destroyed. One misstep, one frightened hatchling, and the energy surges from their emotional responses would cascade into a full-blown system failure. The stakes weren't just about fragile creatures. They were about the survival of the station itself. Ethan scanned the room. The observation chamber's glass still glowed faintly, the Queen watching, silent but unblinking. He had felt her judgment before, but now it was heavier, more insistent. Every move he made was being measured, weighed against some impossible standard. His mind raced. The first two hatchlings responded to food, laughter, calm words, but the third was completely unpredictable. Every instinct told him he had to stabilize the situation immediately, or risk losing control entirely. He grabbed the first hatchling, holding her close, feeling the subtle vibrations of energy pulsing through her fragile body. The second he encouraged to mimic her, using the tiny trills of laughter and curiosity he had learned to trigger. But the third, hidden in the shadows, was still wild. Her wings flared like sparks of lightning, her cries slicing through the alarms. The floor trembled under her energy. "Okay, focus," Ethan muttered, adrenaline sharpening his senses. He ripped open another food packet, this time combining small cubes with a faint scent he remembered from his shift. Something sweet, something familiar from Earth. Slowly, carefully, he extended his hand toward the wild hatchling. Her eyes locked on him, suspicion and fear warring with curiosity. Every second was critical. One false move and the energy surge would spike uncontrollably. The Queen's soft hum resonated through the room, and Ethan realized the sound wasn't just noise. It was a command, a ripple that the hatchlings reacted to instinctively. She was guiding them, or testing him. He needed to act faster than she could manipulate the situation. Gritting his teeth, he began mimicking the subtle cadence of her hum with his own voice, a low, rhythmic vibration designed to reach the hatchlings' nervous systems without triggering fear. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the wild hatchling paused, wings twitching, still tense. Ethan felt the energy spike drop slightly. Encouraged, he combined the hum with the fruit cubes, letting them brush the hatchling's tiny hands. The creature sniffed cautiously, then hesitated. Another tremor ran through the floor, stronger than before. The second hatchling chirped in imitation, and the first trill of laughter rose again. The energy ripple stabilized for a moment. Ethan's breath came in ragged gasps. Yes, you're with me, he whispered, feeling the tiniest sense of control return. But he knew it was temporary. The unknown hatchling still had reserves, and the station's systems were fragile. One wrong emotional spike, one misaligned energy pulse, and the whole nursery could collapse. Suddenly, sparks erupted from the far console. The third hatchling's wings flared violently, sending a surge that made the lights flicker and alarms wail. Ethan stumbled, nearly dropping the first hatchling, and felt panic rise. The Queen's hum intensified, almost like a challenge. She wasn't angry, she was testing the human. Testing if he could rise to the impossible odds before him. Ethan's mind worked at lightning speed. He placed the first hatchling gently on the padded platform again, letting her focus on a single small cube of fruit. He knelt in front of the wild hatchling, eyes locked, voice steady. You're safe. Nothing will hurt you. Trust me. He extended both hands slowly, letting the fruit hover within reach. He mirrored the hum of the Queen with his voice, subtle, almost instinctive. The room held its breath. The wild hatchling twitched, wings tense, claws extended, but then it began to move forward slowly. Ethan felt the energy spike begin to drop. Sparks from the consoles faded. The first hatchling chirped a soft trill of laughter, encouraging the others. The second fluttered its wings in tiny beats, mirroring the first. And then, slowly, the wild hatchling accepted the fruit. A small trill escaped her, raw and musical, and for the first time the energy surges stabilized completely. Ethan sank to the floor, adrenaline roaring through him as the room's vibrations eased. The alarms slowed, lights flickered back to steady, and even the subtle hum from the observation chamber quieted. The Queen's gaze remained on him, but now there was recognition. Respect maybe. He had faced impossible odds and held his ground. He had not panicked. He had acted with courage, intelligence, and empathy. The hatchlings chirped softly, giggling now, curling their tiny wings in contentment. Ethan scooped the first one into his arms again, careful and protective. The second perched on the console edge, still twitching but calm. The third, wildest of all, flitted to a padded corner, eyes bright and trusting. A small victory, but the human in him knew this was only the beginning. He glanced at the Queen again. Her glowing eyes narrowed slightly, then softened, almost imperceptibly. She raised a hand, not threatening this time, but pointing toward the station's far corridors. Whatever the next test, or challenge, was, it lay beyond this room. Ethan swallowed hard, heart still racing. All right, he whispered to the hatchlings, voice steady, determined. We've survived this, but there's more coming. Then a sudden, deep rumble echoed from somewhere deeper in the station, louder than anything before. The hatchling stiffened. Ethan felt it through the soles of his boots, a vibration that wasn't part of the nursery. The Queen's eyes glimmered brighter. The challenge wasn't over. He tightened his grip on the hatchling, bracing himself. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it, not just as a human, but as someone who had earned the trust of beings far beyond his understanding. And somewhere in the darkness, beyond the nursery walls, something massive was moving toward them, its intentions unknown. Ethan's legs trembled as he held the first hatchling close, its tiny heart beating fast against his chest. The second and third were perched cautiously nearby, wings flicking nervously, but all three had stopped thrashing. The deep rumble from the station's core had faded to a low vibration, though every instinct told him it was only temporary. Whatever lay beyond the nursery walls was watching, waiting, but for the moment the immediate danger had passed. He exhaled slowly, trying to calm his own racing heartbeat. The hatchling's laughter, soft, musical, unpredictable, filled the room, a fragile harmony that seemed to resonate with the station itself. Ethan realized how extraordinary it was, Their emotions, their trust, their laughter. It had tangible effects on this alien technology, this alien world. He had always known humans could adapt, survive, and endure, but this was something more. A soft hum echoed through the observation chamber. Ethan looked up to see the Queen, her luminous eyes fixed on him. She had not left. She had been watching every heartbeat, every decision. Her hand rose slowly, almost ceremoniously, pointing toward him. Ethan's stomach clenched. He didn't know the language of her species, but her gesture carried meaning. Acknowledgement, permission, approval. Not trust yet, not fully, but recognition. The hatchlings chirped again, tiny wings fluttering as if understanding the shift in the Queen's mood. Ethan smiled, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it," he whispered. "We really did it." He set the first hatchling on a padded platform, letting her explore while keeping a protective hand nearby. The second and third followed, their cautious curiosity replacing fear. Ethan knelt beside them, speaking softly, letting them adjust to the calm. He noticed subtle changes. The shimmer across their skin had dimmed, the energy surges were now gentle, manageable. The station was steady again, responsive to their moods rather than chaotic, thanks to his guidance. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to observe the nursery in detail. Incubators lined the walls, each containing forms that he hadn't noticed before. Smaller hatchlings, some asleep, others stirring gently. He realized the station held dozens, perhaps hundreds, of these beings, all linked by this strange emotional energy. One misstep could have caused catastrophic failure, and yet he had navigated the chaos. Every decision had mattered. Every choice had consequences. And humans, he thought, had the power to rise above even alien incomprehensibility through courage and ingenuity. A soft trill drew his attention. The first hatchling had returned to his arms, snuggling against his shoulder, wings fluttering lightly in contentment. She chirped, a sound that seemed to invite him into her tiny world, a sound that bridged species, worlds, and understanding. Ethan felt warmth rise in his chest, a bond forming that no protocol, no alien rulebook could erase. The Queen, observing silently, made no move to intervene. Somehow she knew that trust had been earned, not given. Ethan's mind raced. He had stabilized the hatchlings, defused the immediate danger, and won the tentative acknowledgement of a species far more advanced than humanity. But the rumble from the station's deeper core lingered in his memory. Something larger was stirring, something beyond the nursery, beyond the Queen's observation. He could feel it, not threatening, not yet, but undeniably present. "All right," he said softly, glancing at the hatchlings. "We've survived the worst. But I have a feeling this is only the beginning." The first hatchling chirped as if agreeing, tilting her tiny head curiously toward the shadows of the room. Ethan couldn't help but laugh softly, relief and awe mingling in his voice. Laughter, it had saved them once, and now it connected him to these creatures in ways he hadn't imagined. The Queen's eyes shifted, focusing on the far corridor beyond the nursery. Ethan followed her gaze, and for the first time, he noticed faint lights flickering there, subtle but deliberate. Something was moving, larger than the hatchlings, slower, deliberate. Whatever it was, it carried intelligence. And whatever it was, it would challenge him in ways the nursery had only hinted at. He took a deep breath, planting himself firmly on the floor. "We face it together," he whispered to the hatchlings. The first chirped again, wings flapping softly, a small sound of reassurance. The others echoed her, their tiny harmonies filling the room. Ethan felt a surge of confidence. Humans were capable of facing impossible odds, of acting with courage, empathy, and intelligence, even in alien circumstances that defied understanding. The lights flickered again, and from the far corridor came a shadow moving, larger than the hatchlings, slower, deliberate. Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. Was it another hatchling? A guardian? Or something more ancient, more powerful than the Queen herself? He didn't know yet. But he had learned something vital. Humans could adapt, could inspire trust, could act decisively when the odds seemed insurmountable. And that knowledge, that courage, was his advantage. The Queen's hand rose one final time, not commanding, not judging, but signaling something almost imperceptible: respect. Ethan's gaze met hers for a heartbeat. He had survived, he had protected, and he had earned acknowledgement in a world far beyond Earth. Then, faint but unmistakable, a trill of laughter echoed again, coming not from the hatchlings, but from the far corridor. Ethan's pulse quickened. The station held secrets yet untold, challenges yet to face. But for now, in this small nursery, human courage had shone. He had saved lives, earned trust, and discovered the fragile but extraordinary power of connection. Emotion, empathy, intelligence, humanity at its finest. Ethan stood slowly, holding the first hatchling gently, glancing at the other two. "We've done well," he whispered. "But there's more out there waiting for us." The shadow in the corridor shifted again and Ethan felt it keenly. Something massive, intelligent, and alive was moving closer. Whatever it was, he was ready. Humans didn't just survive. They rose, they adapted, they triumphed against impossible odds. And now, the next challenge awaited, just beyond the nursery doors. The hatchlings chirped softly in agreement, their tiny wings brushing against his arms. Ethan smiled, determination hardening. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it, not just as a human but as a protector, a guide, a beacon of courage in a universe that had only just begun to reveal its mysteries. And somewhere in the depths of the station, beyond the observation chamber and the nursery, something watched, waiting, intrigued, and the adventure was far from over.